Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Rosie and I graduated from Oxford last year and I'm starting a master's in September. This video is incredibly highly requested. I've had so many messages about food at uni and what to cook, quick, easy and cheap recipes. So here you are. I'm going to be sharing my top 5 student meals and we're going to be cooking them completely from scratch each time. And I'll take you step by step, probably with a voiceover I think, and show you the process for everyone. Enjoy! Okay, so this is my absolute favourite meal, only since I've started cooking it though. Not to toot my own horn or anything, but I absolutely love this. I mean, when you cook it yourself, you know, you can do it perfectly to your tastes, right? So this meal is a spaghetti bolognese or whatever other type of pasta you want to use. And this one in particular is a quorn bolognese. You can obviously use normal mince if you want, just replace the frozen quorn mince that I'm using with normal mince. For this particular bolognese, I used actual branded quorn mince just because that's what we had in, but a lot of supermarkets do their own brand version. I've definitely tried the Tesco and the Sainsbury's frozen ones and they are really good. Would recommend using those. Now, if you look at the serving size on the packet, it usually says 4, so I would split it in half and make a 2-serving one so that you can save some for later. It actually ends up being more than 2 servings because of the amount of vegetables that you put in as well. Vegetables I tend to include in this meal are 1 pepper, some mushrooms if you like mushrooms, quite a lot of spinach, several handfuls, a big onion, doesn't matter what colour, tin of chopped tomatoes. I also like to add a couple of carrots, I just didn't have any in this, and celery also works really nicely in this dish. Also make sure you've got some soy sauce or some Bovril if you are having a meat version, some gravy, again if you're having veggie then get veggie gravy but it doesn't really make a difference to the taste, garlic granules or garlic, and some Italian herbs, basil or oregano, whichever one you want to use, doesn't really matter. Oh yeah, here's me suffering from the onions as usual. They're actually lethal things, aren't they? If you're adding carrots to your meal, then you want to fry them for a little bit before you add anything else. So add the carrots with some olive oil and just let them kind of sit and fry to themselves and get on with cutting up the rest of your stuff, just because otherwise they're a bit too hard and they end up being like the perfect level of crunchy if you fry them for a little bit first. Then, or if you're not using carrots, you want onions and quorn in first together because the onions need to have a little bit longer to cook and the quorn is frozen so it needs to be thawed out. I also like to add peppers pretty much as soon as the onions have gone in because I'm not a crunchy pepper person. For me they need to be soft, but if you want to judge that how you want, doesn't really matter. Also, this is when you add your spinach, so you want quite a lot of spinach, let it all wilt, let it all simmer, and once all the dry ingredients are simmering, I will add 150 milliliters of vegetable stock just to let them bubble a little bit in some liquid, saves you adding more oil, and then I will add about a tablespoon of tomato puree, give it a good mix, and following that, once it's all mixed in, the tin of chopped tomatoes. After you've added the tin of chopped tomatoes, you might need a bit more water because sometimes there just isn't enough, and then add about 4 heaped teaspoons of gravy. You might need more than this, just judge it on the taste and the thickness because the gravy turns it from like a tomatoey watery thing with quorn in it to an actual proper thick sauce that does taste a little bit meaty despite not having any actual meat in it. So meal number 2 is a stir fry. I absolutely love stir fries and this is going to be for 3 people because I'm cooking it for my family today, but obviously if you were going to copy this amount of stuff then you could just save it for several days. This stir fry that I'm doing is going to be with prawns, but you could do it with chicken or beef or pork or quorn. Whatever you want to do as your meat is fine. You could also just have vegetables, but I quite fancied prawns today, so that's what we're having. This one I think is the most expensive of all of them because you buy specific like stir fry sauce and stir fry vegetables, but it's still pretty cheap, especially because it makes more than one serving. Okay, we've got ready cooked prawns, we've got some raw broccoli, mushrooms, I've got an onion, pepper, and any other veg that you want you can add, it really doesn't matter. I then do use one of these stir fry packs as well, just because it's got those extra vegetables in like bamboo shoots and water chestnuts. I'm also using soy sauce and lemon juice, and the noodles that I'm using are these egg noodles that you do have to boil first. For the stir fry sauce you can choose any of these. I've got peanut satay and chow mein for this one because that was all I could find. My favourite is actually oyster sauce or black bean. They're delicious. So chop up all your veg, give them a wash, whatever you need to do with them to get them ready, and then cook your mushrooms and your onions first, because mushrooms I find taste so much better when they're a little bit crispy, and soggy mushrooms are a bit meh. You don't want those. So after you've added the onions and the mushrooms, you want to put the broccoli in because it can be quite hard, and you want to cook it a little bit to just get rid of that complete hardness so there's a nice crunch to it. Add your peppers as well then, and then you want to fry it for a little bit. Get your noodles on ready because a stir fry is so quick that your noodles want to be cooking at the same time. Once your veg looks like it's kind of gone past that stage of being completely raw, add the rest of your stir fry pack and then wilt it down because it will look massive, but trust me, it is going to shrink as it loses all the water and goes all floppy. Only add your prawns, because they're already cooked, only add your prawns once your veg looks pretty much done. If you're doing any other type of meat, add it in right at the beginning with the onions. So if you're doing chicken, if you're doing corn, I've never actually made a beef stir fry, but add it always at the beginning with the onions and like some garlic, some soy sauce and some lemon juice. Now, once you think your veg is pretty much done, you want to add in your stir fry sauces as well. Properly mix it in so that the stir fry sauce starts to sizzle and coats everything in your pan, and then when the noodles are ready, drain them off and add them to your pan as well so that they soak up all of the nice juices, and then serve. Moving on to the next meal, we have my personal favourite and something that I genuinely think is the easiest meal to make ever. It's the best student meal because it's cheap, it's simple, it's quick, and you can just kind of set it off whilst doing other stuff. Obviously don't leave a pan unattended, but in the same room, I mean. So this dish is called pho. It is, I'm pretty sure, a Vietnamese dish, so obviously this is not going to be properly done. This is a very cheap kind of mock-up version of it. You can add whatever you want to it, but this is going to be a veggie version, and it's all, well, it's vegetables with some lentils. Like I said, this has got to be one of the easiest things to cook possibly ever. It's so straightforward. However, my brother still struggles to manage it every single time he tries to make it. So here we go, you can learn it from me. First of all, you want to add everything to your little pan. So get not a big one, like a medium-sized saucepan, and add half a tin of lentils, drain them first. Then a couple of handfuls of spinach. If you really like spinach, add a third. You want some peas in there. I'm not gonna lie, I don't measure them. I just go by sight, like just add however many peas you think you'll like. As well as peas, broccoli is great. I don't think I use broccoli in this one, but I like to add a couple of small heads of broccoli or one big one, and then I'll chop it up when it's gone soft. You always do need an onion. It doesn't really matter what size onion because it goes all shrivelly and melt in the mouthy anyway because you're boiling it, so it's just for flavour. And for extra flavour you want to add some spring onions if you like spring onions. There's a bee in my room. What was I don't know where I got up to. Then add 2 stock cubes. I use 2 because I think you've probably gathered by now I'm a bit of a flavour fiend. Add a teeny bit of soy sauce because it tastes nice, and then some garlic, and I also do add some mixed herbs or oregano. Not necessary, but I quite like a little bit of a herby taste. When you've added all of these things in, you want to add as much boiling water as you need to cover or pretty much cover all of the things in the pan and let it boil away and just bubble until the onion has gone glassy and clear. Once the onion is glassy, add in 1 portion of rice noodles. Keep it boiling until you can almost cut the onions up with your wooden spoon. That means it's done. And then just pour it into a bowl and serve. You need a big bowl, otherwise it's not going to fit. If you haven't got a big bowl, then just have the pan out and pour it in, bit by bit, but big bowl works best. Hello, so the next recipe we have got is pancakes. This is a recipe for vegan pancakes because it's actually easier, I find, and you can use up like an old banana. It is so few ingredients, all the ingredients are cheap, and you can add a few extra things if you want, but I'll tell you which ones are optional and which ones you actually need. I've been using this recipe in variations for years, and you can add all sorts of different flavours to them, so let's go. So what you're going to need is about a cup of oats. I'm doing it in cups because then you don't need scales to weigh. You literally just fill this pretty much to the top, and you need 1 banana. They're better when they're getting a bit spotty, and about half a cup of some form of milk. These 2 are optional, but I do think it adds to them. These have omega-3s and a bit of protein. Always helps in pancakes because then it's more of a balanced meal, but they're not necessary. Blend up all of your ingredients in a blender or a food processor. It is better in a smoothie maker blender because it blends up more, creamily, less lumpy. Add your oats kind of second because they stick to the bottom if you add them first. So I would add your banana, then a bit of milk, then your oats. I have made the mistake of adding powders and oats before the liquid so many times it just gets stuck to the side and it doesn't mix in. So if you want, add the liquid first, or like the banana first, because that is wet anyway. Once it's all blended up, that's your mixture ready. You just blend everything, don't worry about separating things out. You can at this point add berries if you want to. Don't blend those, just hold them ready for when you're frying it. But essentially, you're going to pour as much into the pan as you want to be the size of your pancake. And then if you're adding berries, once you see bubbles start to appear, you add a couple of frozen berries on top of the pancake. If you don't want berries, doesn't matter, just flip it. So as soon as the bubbles appear and start to pop, that's when you know it's getting ready to be flippable. Once the bubbles have all seemingly popped, or most of them, get your spatula underneath and flip it over. So if you've got berries in, you'll have just flipped it over and the berries will now be on the underside. Don't worry about adding any more onto this side that is now at the top because you've got enough on the bottom. Big tip though, you do need to make sure you've got enough oil or spray light or whatever you're using in the pan, otherwise it will probably stick. If you've got one of those amazing non-stick pans, then good for you. I don't, and it meant that I made a big mess of my first pancake. The first pancake is always going to be the rubbish one, by the way. Don't be disheartened if your first pancake goes to shit because your pan is either not hot enough or you've not got enough fat in the pan. Just keep adding your pancakes to a plate. If you want to keep them warm, then put the oven on a low heat and then store them in the bottom. Then dress it with whatever you want. I like peanut butter, syrup, and extra banana and berries. Again, really doesn't matter what you put on. That's pancakes. And the final recipe that I'm going to be showing you is for a chickpea curry. It is using korma paste, but feel free to replace that paste with any other curry flavour that you like. If you want to make your curry from scratch, then just make the flavourings from scratch instead of using paste, but this is a quick and easier way of doing it. It uses so many vegetables, so it's really good for you, really hearty, and you'll be able to save some for a different meal. If you want to add meat, feel free to go ahead, but this is just going to be chickpeas as the protein. The curry's a bit of a longer one just because there's quite a few more stages to do than in the previous ones, But the first thing you do, as usual, is cook your veg. So you want to do your onions on first with some olive oil. We've done that in every stage so far. But with a curry, you're not just doing onions and garlic. What you need to add to this as well is some extra spices such as turmeric, garam masala, and anything else that you really like. I do like to add a bit of ginger as well, just because I think it adds, I'm not even, it's like a little edge. It's not even a kick, it's just a nice edge. If you want extra spice, then keep adding curry powder. Turmeric is what turns your onions this really lovely yellow colour. Just basically make sure it's properly seasoned, and these spices are best because it's a curry, but if you don't like them, you don't like them. Plus, the curry paste has these spices in anyway. I just think it needs a little bit extra flavour. Once you've seasoned your onions, you want to add the pepper, get that going. And then once the pepper has been in for maybe a minute or two, add 150 ml of stock and just let it simmer there. Let your stock simmer in there for about 2-3 minutes, and then add a tablespoon of tomato puree, followed by about, I don't know, like 2 tablespoons of korma paste. Basically look at the serving size suggestions on the pot and then follow that. Now this bit is completely up to you, but if you like a tiny bit of sweetness to your curry, then I would add a couple of teaspoons of peanut butter. I haven't always done this, but then I started making some Thai dishes and just continued adding peanut butter into all of my curry dishes, just because it adds a tiny bit of creaminess and a little bit of sweetness and nuttiness that, you know, isn't necessary, but I personally really like. Once the peanut butter has been creamed in, because you can't just chuck it in because then it doesn't mix well, you have to sort of cream it around a little bit. Then you want to add a tin of chopped tomatoes and sit that there just to simmer for a bit. So you just want to leave it bubbling for about 5 minutes, then add a load of spinach. And once the spinach is completely wilted, then you want to add a full tin of chickpeas. Make sure you drain them first using a sieve, but then add the full tin and mix them in and then just let it sit. There's a lot of letting it sit in this process, but it is necessary to get the flavour to come out properly. And finally, add some more spinach before you then leave it again. And serve it with rice. So yeah, I forgot to say you need to cook your rice alongside this. And that is that. There are my 5 favourite things to cook as a student, and hopefully the recipes are easy enough to follow and the ingredients are all pretty cheap and easy to find in regular supermarkets. So if you have any other video requests for starting uni or just in general, then do let me know in the comments or DM me on Instagram, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!